We are 65,000 square miles.
Rivers, farms, lakes,
Prairies.
Cities. There are 5.7 million of us.
we have hardships.
We have happiness.
We have heartbreak.
We have successes.
Ups and downs, and we share them.
Together.
We are Wisconsin, and November 6th, we get to decide.
This is Swing State, Wisconsin, a Campaign 2012 special. From the state capitol in Madison, here are Susan Simon and Eric Franke.
Thanks for joining us. In 12 days, the Badger State goes to the polls, casting ballots in a campaign that has stretched nearly 2 years.
Wisconsin is one of a handful of key states whose electoral votes could decide the election. But there's more than just the presidency up for grabs, which is why over the next hour we'll also hear from Senate candidates Tammy Baldwin and Tommy Thompson. I'll sit down for a candid conversation with both of them.
Then put two headline-making campaign ads through a reality check, along with a look at third-party candidates running a race for the White House in spite of the long odds against them.
And through it all, we want to hear from you. We'll be live tweeting with you throughout the show and invite you to weigh in. Use the Twitter hashtag MyWI and join the conversation. Here in Swing State, Wisconsin, like the rest of the country, the economy is the #1 issue. And even if it's not what you care about most, it's a safe bet that the things you do are tied to it.
Now, with so much on the line, we sent Jessica Arp on the road around Wisconsin to find out how and why.
15 miles west of Lake Michigan sits quiet, quaint St. Nazianz, Wisconsin.
Our company is 113 years old. We're the biggest employee here. There are only about 700 or 800 people. We employ almost 270.
Here you'll find the strength of our state. Building the biggest farm implement brand you've never heard of.
We compete against Case IH and John Deere, which are very strong brands here. They're lesser so in other parts of the world. So our independent Miller brand has a better shot of selling to a farmer in Russia than it does to a farmer in Iowa. You got a front-mounted cap for easy vision.
John Miller now sells more than 50% of his crop sprayers around the world. After a slowdown leading to layoffs in 09 and 10, Miller is expanding again. 70 new faces have come to work in the last 2 years. It's not lost on Miller that the outcome of the approaching election could shape his future.
For me to grow as a company, I need to make strategic investments in both educating our people and capital expansion here. The government needs to do the same thing. So they need to make investments in infrastructure so that I can bring my products to market. And they also need to make investments in our education.
But Miller can also see the hardship that continues during his building boom.
Our gains have been somebody else's loss. We're hiring a lot of people lately that have been laid off from other jobs in the local area that are hurting.
It's a challenge working on this, but it's, I'll get used to it.
New buttons and new tools mean a new path for Jeff Dietrich.
34 years at Thermo Fisher, and it's too bad.
After spending most of his life at the healthcare manufacturer, Dietrich says he never knew management was sharpening the axe.
I thought when I started there when I was 18 years old, I thought I'd be retiring from there. Nobody expects it. You hear of all these plants closing, and you don't think it's going to happen to you, and it does. It's sad. A lot of people lost their jobs.
The same story playing out across Wisconsin, just 2 hours northwest in Stevens Point.
It was a kick in the teeth. They never asked the union for any type of concessions to try to keep it here. The state and the city offered them millions in incentives to stay, and they weren't interested. They already had their mind made up.
Jorn's Healthcare, which makes nursing home beds and furniture, languishes on the west side of town. It's where George Peretz has shown up for work since 1985 until next week. More than 150 jobs at the plant are headed south of the border, a cold reality that's left Peretz with a message for the presidential candidates.
Instead of worrying about retraining us after we lose our jobs, we need to figure out how we're going to keep our jobs. And the bottom line is be American, buy American, because the job that you save may be your own.
All right, take some deep breaths for me.
In southwest Wisconsin, a Dodgeville doctor's office is Arnold Boone's refuge, having gone cold turkey both from smoking and health care.
I mean, you've got some diminished breath sounds, which can be consistent with a little bit of emphysema.
The Chicago transplant landed in Montfort with no job, fortunate to find the community's free clinic.
People that's unemployed and people that are not have any health insurance, there's no other place to go.
We're open 2 nights a week. We're on pace to have the busiest year that we've ever had. Are you having any residual pain from when the stitches were coming out?
Dr. Aaron Dunn opened the doors here in 2006 and has only seen the need grow.
The access is still poor. The services we can offer are still limited. And we are a stopgap. We are not a long-term solution. So that's what we're looking for, is some kind of long-term fix so that people don't have to come here anymore.
Just minutes down the road in rural Iowa County.
We bought it in 2005. It's our 7th year on the farm.
The economy hasn't been kind to Laura Daniels. Costs of crops and feed skyrocketed in 2008. Milk prices tanked in 2009. And just when the industry seemed headed for a turnaround, the 2012 drought wiped out their corn crop. Their herd of Jersey cows have weathered the weather so far, but that doesn't mean there's not more to do.
Stepping back and thinking about agriculture as a whole, we need to pass a farm bill. And this is really important to us. And when it comes to politics, a lot of times politics that directly affect agriculture, you're not going to see it in the debate, and you're really not going to see a lot of national public discussion about it.
A political priority for Daniels is crop insurance, a safety net when Mother Nature has other plans.
Ag policy has to be all about balance, and that farmers are entrepreneurial by spirit, and we want to succeed on our own. But we also understand that there is a larger need for us to succeed beyond ourselves and our family. That feeding people is a kind of a big deal, right?
Head 2.5 hours east to the state's largest city, and you'll find a young woman who deeply understands the need to succeed.
My mom being a single mother with 4 children, there's no way she could provide for me to, go to college out of pocket. Just looking up something in the catalog here.
Tammy Robinson's job at UW-Milwaukee's main library isn't just for spending money.
I can help you down here.
The junior got a financial wake-up call from the government before school started this year. A notice she was ineligible for the Pell Grants that had been putting her through school. Why? A 25-cent an hour raise at her previous bank teller job.
I wouldn't have taken it. It wasn't worth it. The money I was making before I got the raise was good enough to take care of home and then still be able to get that help to pay for school.
Robinson knows how much is at stake as the presidential candidates look at college costs.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people dropped out.
But for her, the loss of her grant is about more than just money.
Those people that do have parents they can go to, they don't understand. But people like me do.
Her unique situation, just one take on the challenges the people of Wisconsin face.
Hopefully next year I'll be able to get a little something to help me out.
It's how we respond to that adversity that will drive our decision-making this November.
It's real hard to walk away from a perfectly good job. Now you don't have a choice, so you're kind of like that small bird that gets kicked out of the nest. You got to go and learn how to fly all over again.
A lot of times you think you take for granted what you have, what you had, and now you start over, and hopefully with the election and I hope everything turns out okay, whoever is president.
Hope for what lies ahead as swing state Wisconsin chooses a path not only for our future, but for our country's. For Campaign 2012, I'm Jessica Arp.
And our thanks to Jessica, and we know those are just a few of the voices out there.
But what are the issues that matter most to you? Let us know on Twitter using the hashtag MyWI, or you can tweet right at us. Swing State, Wisconsin is just getting started. Up next, what's with all those promises politicians make about jobs? Can they really fulfill them?
A look at some numbers and analysis on whether or not they should be believed. And later, we'll look at who's writing the checks in the most costly U.S. Senate race in Wisconsin history.
Our Campaign 2012 election special, Swing State, Wisconsin, will be right back.
Washington could sure learn a lot from Wisconsin.
Especially how to tighten their belts and balance the budget.
I believe that Washington is moving in the wrong direction.
Have you seen Tammy Baldwin's voting record?
The health care bill that Tammy Baldwin voted for will cost us double what they promised.
Our national debt is at $16 trillion.
I have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. The debt they'll have, we can't even understand it now.
Americans for Prosperity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
There's just no quit in America, and you're seeing that right now. Over 5 million new jobs. Exports up 41%. Home values rising. Our auto industry back. And our heroes are coming home. We're not there yet, but we've made real progress. And the last thing we should do is turn back now. Here's my plan for the next 4 years. Making education and training a national priority. Building on our manufacturing boom. Boosting American-made energy, reducing the deficits responsibly by cutting where we can and asking the wealthy to pay a little more, and ending the war in Afghanistan so we can do some nation building here at home. That's the right path. So read my plan, compare it to Governor Romney's, and decide which is better for you. It's an honor to be your president, and I'm asking for your vote. So together, we can keep moving America forward. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
We had a good group of people, good group of employees out there.
This was a booming place, and Mitt Romney and Bain Capital turned it into a junkyard.
I was suddenly 60 years old. I had no health care.
Mainly I was thinking about is my family. How am I going to take care of my family?
He promised us the same things he's promised in the United States. He'll give you the same thing he gave us. Nothing.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
New Year's Eve is a time to reflect, celebrate, and give thanks. Celebrate New Year's Eve at Ho-Chunk Gaming Wisconsin Dells and celebrate the lives and efforts of our Wisconsin war veterans. Proceeds from the night's festivities will go to benefit the Badger Honor Flight of Wisconsin. The Badger Honor Flight gives vets the opportunity to visit war memorials in Washington, D.C., followed by a joyous homecoming celebration with family and friends. Ho-Chunk Gaming Wisconsin, working within our communities, working together to do great things. You're watching Swing State, Wisconsin, a Campaign 2012 special.
As we head down the home stretch to Election Day, there's no question the Badger State is still hurting. Some 200,000 are still out of work.
And Mitt Romney is making a familiar claim that he can put the state back to work. But President Obama and Governor Scott Walker have tried to do the same with uncertain results. Theo Keith tries to sort out if anyone can be believed.
Instead of listening to political promises, the new economy has workers taking action to get retrained.
There you go. Can you turn this clamp to the inside here, maybe?
For Madison College student Gregory Kolaski, fixing up old solar panels is nothing like his last job.
I was in the Marines.
He's been to job fairs where companies are hopeful, but not always hiring.
They're doing lots of proposals. There's lots of proposals out there, a lot of people petitioning to do things, and that's pretty much right there where it stops.
Energy and manufacturing have been key to plenty of job plans of the past.
So do those promises ever pay off? Let's rewind to the stimulus back in 2009. As then Governor Jim Doyle was cutting the ribbon on Cardinal Glass.
Modern manufacturing.
In Washington, the Obama administration made a pledge to create 70,000 jobs in Wisconsin. $4 billion came our way, funding 80,000 positions. Trouble is that jobs picture is murky. The administration set the rules so that there's no way to know how many jobs were new or saved as a result of the stimulus versus how many would have existed even without it. Of course, this lack of accountability benefits the politician who put the program in place.
Again, independent of their political parties, have this incentive to kind of shoot anything that flies and claim anything that lands.
UW economist Steve Deller says it works politically to do that because jobs promises and ribbon cuttings look good. Now Mitt Romney is pledging to create jobs in Wisconsin, and his number might sound somewhat familiar.
Create over 240,000 new jobs.
The former Massachusetts governor is promising to add 12 million jobs nationwide. He simply divided it by 50 states, resulting in the 240,000 figure. Of course, he's not the only Republican who's made jobs promises to people here in Wisconsin.
250,000 new jobs.
So how's it going for Governor Walker? As of March of this year, using the quarterly census of employment and wages, the most accurate data available, Wisconsin employers had added about 45,000 new jobs since he took office. Using preliminary employment data to account for job losses since then, as of right now, nearly 37,000 more jobs exist in the Badger State. That's 15% of Walker's promise.
Should he be judged on that? Perhaps he should.
Deller says if the national economy is struggling, it's awfully hard for Wisconsin to do great by itself. At the same time,
the governor kind of put the gauntlet down and said, I will do this. And a lot of folks voted for him based on that argument.
Whether it's the governor's tax credits, the president's federal grants, or Romney's latest pledge, politicians are asking that you trust their promises while you wait on the results. For Campaign 2012, I'm Theo Keith.
In south central Wisconsin, 2 congressional candidates think they have at least part of the solution to a path forward.
It's not the first run for office for either man, each citing small business experience as one of the keys to their potential success. Here's Andy Choi with what separates the pair facing off in Wisconsin's 2nd congressional district.
But you're going to make that happen.
That's right.
2nd Congressional GOP candidate Chad Lee hopes a second shot at the seat proves greater results.
I think I understand the issues better. I think I understand the problems that we face as a nation better.
Back in 2010, Lee lost to longtime incumbent Tammy Baldwin by a 62-38 margin. With Baldwin now running for U.S. Senate, the Mount Horeb resident says he would have regretted not making a repeat run.
There's always been hurdles in my life that I've had to overcome. And I believe that's what's taught me the discipline and the hard work and those types of characteristics that I've had, and that hasn't stopped. Our campaign is working nonstop, 7 days a week, because we know that it's a challenge.
How's business been?
Lee's Democratic challenger is no stranger to Wisconsin politics. Mark Pocan has served 14 years in the state legislature and says his experience is what Washington demands.
This is kind of a natural next job in the sense that I can take what I learned at the state level, and I used to be in local government, and go to the federal level and really hit the ground running and take all those lessons of the last 14 years in the legislature, figure out how to work to get something done.
A lifelong politician happens when someone puts their career ahead of the people they represent, puts their next election ahead of their next vote for the people they represent. And unfortunately, I think that's the difference between my opponent and myself.
Having access to health care.
Pocan says he'll focus much of his work on protecting President Obama's Affordable Care Act, what many call Obamacare, and reviving the economy with a focus on the middle class.
When it comes to the economy, I think we need to grow the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not just from the top down. Tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, and hoping that trickles down on the rest of us.
Good to see you.
Lee says small businesses play a crucial role in job growth. The 29-year-old entrepreneur believes businesses are too timid to hire new positions.
It's taxes, it's uncertainty, it's over-regulation and red tape that just causes them to sit on their hands, because if they hire somebody today or tomorrow, the cost of keeping that employee is on track to go up significantly in 2013.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Pocan, a 48-year-old small business owner himself, remains a favorite to win the heavily Democratic district. But both men believe their life experiences will best serve the people of the 2nd Congressional.
I believe that America is the greatest country on earth, that I'm going to defend the American dream, I'm going to defend our freedoms, our liberties.
It's a very diverse district, so I think having the diverse set of experiences that I've had in the legislature really helped me to understand the many facets of the 2nd Congressional District.
For Campaign 2012, I'm Andy Choi.
No question Wisconsin is a political hotbed, but just how hot? When Swing State Wisconsin returns, we add up all the mega money being spent in the Tammy versus Tommy U.S. Senate showdown.
Are you still that guy from Elroy? How do you convince the voters that you are not the guy in Tammy's ads? Hear Tommy Thompson's answer when I asked that question, and many more when we sat down for a conversation. And then it's time for a reality check on Thompson's latest television ad.
Oak Express and Bedroom Expressions warehouse is overstocked, which means great savings for you. Right now, get a free dining chair with any 5-piece set, a free HD TV with qualifying purchase, 4 years no interest, and a chance to win a trip to Disney World. Home of Denver Mattress, a Tempur-Pedic elite retailer.
Tammy Baldwin is too extreme. So extreme, Baldwin proposed trillions in taxes Nancy Pelosi opposed.
You're damn right.
So extreme, Baldwin voted for higher taxes over 150 times. And so extreme, Baldwin voted against the bipartisan tax cut compromise.
No way! Not here! Not now!
Tammy Baldwin, too extreme for Wisconsin.
You're damn right.
The National Republican Senatorial Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
These are the hands that built America. They aren't Republican hands or Democrat hands. They're American hands. They don't want a handout, didn't get a bailout, just worked harder and earned their way. These hands built America, and they're ready to build it again. Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan believe these hands hold our solutions. On Election Day, let's vote for leaders who believe in American solutions, not more Washington failures.
American Future Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The final days of the model year-end clearance. Get closeout Don Miller deals during Ram Power Days featuring new Rams like Hemi Express 4x4s from only $24,999. Get Ram Tradesman Quad 4x4s from $26,995. And during the Jeep Celebration event, get Don Miller Jeep Wranglers from $23,222. 2012 model year closeouts from Don Miller Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram. Odana at Tokay.
We have to work on a collaborative basis. Look, the reason I'm in this race is there are people that are really hurting today in this country. And we face this deficit could crush the future generations. And Republicans and Democrats both love America, but we need to have leadership in Washington that will actually bring people together and get the job done, and could not care less if it's a Republican or a Democrat. I've done it before, I'll do it again.
I'm Mitt Romney, and I approve this message.
Oak Express and Bedroom Expressions warehouse is overstocked, which means great savings for you. Right now, get a free dining chair with any 5-piece set, a free HD TV with qualifying purchase, 4 years no interest, and a chance to win a trip to Disney World. Home of Denver Mattress, a Tempur-Pedic elite retailer.
Coming up tonight on News 3 at 10, Senate candidates Tommy Thompson and Tammy Baldwin have their final debate before the election. We break it down. And a new mystery to solve in south central Wisconsin. What's being said about the new booms tonight. When you fill her up, are you getting every gallon you pay for? We tag along with state inspectors working to make sure all the numbers add up. Learn how often area pumps are inspected and where your dollar may be getting siphoned. Monday on News 3 at 10.
You're watching Swing State, Wisconsin, a Campaign 2012 special.
The battle for a U.S. Senate seat between Tammy and Tommy is the most expensive Senate race in Wisconsin history.
More than $50 million have been spent so far, making it the third most expensive race in the country behind the presidency and the fight over a Virginia Senate seat. We partnered with the Wisconsin Center for Investigative Journalism for a little analysis.
Tammy voted to take tax dollars.
He went to work for one of these fancy Washington lobbying firms.
You're damn right.
It just doesn't add up.
If it seems the negative ads never stop,
You know, Tommy Thompson just doesn't get it.
it's because they don't. Using data from the Center for Responsive Politics and the Federal Election Commission, watchdog reporter Bill Leaders discovered outside groups are spending big, a whopping $28.9 million. 90% of that money spent to oppose the other candidates, resulting in those attack ads.
Both candidates have significant constituencies that are supporting them in this race, whether it's because they agree with them politically or whether they're trying to determine the political balance of the U.S. Senate. Groups are spending hand over fist in order to win this race.
Who's spending the most? All race long, it's been a seesaw, but the current total puts groups backing Baldwin up slightly. $15.6 million has been spent to support the Democrat. $13.2 million has been doled out to help Thompson. The biggest spender on Baldwin's side is the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, shelling out $5.7 million. On the Republican side, Crossroads GPS has spent $4.7 million. Does all this spending now mean this is the new norm for Wisconsin?
I don't think so. I think what we're seeing here is very much a function of the fact that the outside groups in particular see this as a seat that can go either way. 6 years from now, when there's an election for this same seat, that might not be seen that way.
With the onslaught of negative ads, you have to have pretty thick skin to wade this deep into politics.
And with all the mudslinging going on, it may make you wonder, why do it at all? I spent time on the trail with each of the candidates, hoping to reveal a little bit more about who they are and why it makes sense to run in this race at this time. We begin tonight with my conversation with former Governor Tommy Thompson. We caught up with Tommy Thompson on National Manufacturing Day. He spent the morning at Reed Switch Developments Corporation in Racine, a small company of 16 employees celebrating a big expansion. It was a friendly crowd for the former governor, who at 71 is making another run for national office. And a lot of your supporters thought you'd probably be the last person that would ever suggest changes to Medicare. Why are you doing that?
Because it's going broke. It's going to be bankrupt unless it's fixed. I want to make sure that people in my age group are always going to have Medicare. And if we don't do anything, it's going to go bankrupt and nobody's going to have it.
But how can you do that and still reassure people that that parachute will be there?
Because if I don't do it, if we don't fix it, nobody will have Medicare. That would be a disaster for our country. I want to make sure that seniors like me are always going to be protected.
It's the kind of frank talk that voters have come to expect from the patriarch of Wisconsin politics. Thompson served as the 42nd governor of Wisconsin and was elected an unprecedented 4 times. He left office when President George W. Bush appointed him Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. Thompson served in the Bush cabinet until 2005. In 2007, he announced his candidacy for the 2008 presidential election.
I announce my candidacy for President of the United States.
I want, ladies and gentlemen, to ignite and fuel a national debate on the best ways to get America back on track and to get our party back on track.
Thompson dropped out of the race after finishing 6th in the Ames straw poll in Iowa. But 4 years later, he's back in the national spotlight. You are probably more accomplished than most of the public servants of your generation. So why are you doing this?
Because the country's in trouble, Susan, and because I'm very worried about the direction our country's going. I have 3 children and 8 grandchildren, your children and grandchildren, and all of those children and grandchildren out there. We've always promised them a country stronger, freer, fairer, safer, with more options we had. For the first time, we can no longer say that. That's the reason I'm running, for those people.
How did your family feel about your decision?
Well, you know, Sue Ann has never been happy about me running for anything, but she said, Tommy, if that's what you want to do, the country needs you, and I will support you. I'll tell you this much, the 3 children, my 3 kids, have been excellent. They have been working hard, pushing, making suggestions, sometimes too many, but they've been very much involved. I appreciate that.
A lot of attention has been paid to Thompson's career outside of politics. Shortly after leaving the Bush cabinet, he became a partner at a Washington, D.C. law and lobbying firm, consulting for healthcare clients. Are you still that guy from Elroy? How do you convince the voters that you are not the guy in Tammy's ads?
First off, I've never been a lobbyist. Never. Either at the state or the federal level. I came back after I left Washington to run a company in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I was president of the company, then I was chairman of the company, and in 7 years we went from 125 employees, which I was, to over 900. We created over 700 jobs in the state of Wisconsin, La Crosse area. I still manage and still have a house on the family farm. So, and that's in Elroy, Wisconsin. So I ran a business in La Crosse and managed the family farm in Elroy, Wisconsin. I don't know how much more Wisconsin I could become.
But in your soul, that is still who you are. You're still that guy from Elroy.
You know something, people don't know this, but every weekend, Sue Ann never left, when I was secretary. She stayed here and built the Women's Health Foundation. And so I came home every weekend. I was back in Madison or Elroy every weekend. I never stayed in Washington. And so people that go to Washington say, well, Tommy Thompson went to Washington. Yeah, I went there during the week to run the department, but I always came home on weekends, and I always voted in Wisconsin.
The rigors of a national campaign have not seemed to slow down Tommy Thompson, and even his opponents are impressed with his stamina.
I'm physically fit and mentally alert. I still speak from the heart with passion and without notes. And so I absolutely want to do this job because I really believe the country's in bad shape.
And for the people who say Tommy Thompson did a good job and he had a good run, but it's time to pass the torch, you say?
Still do everything I possibly can for Wisconsin. I love cheering for Wisconsin. And Wisconsin is a place where Eagles soar and Packers score and Harleys roar. And I coined that, and that is exactly how I feel.
And later on Swing State, Wisconsin, my conversation with Thompson's Democratic challenger, Congresswoman Tammy Baldwin.
But first, the sharpest knives we've seen yet came out this week in the Senate race. A controversial ad from Thompson claims Baldwin failed to honor 9/11 victims. Here's Jessica Arp with the first of 2 reality checks.
It didn't take a third-party group to amp up the mudslinging. Tommy Thompson has taken it upon himself to unleash the most emotionally loaded ad of the 2012 campaign.
Tammy Baldwin had the opportunity to vote to honor the victims of 9/11, and she voted against it.
This is misleading. This entire ad hinges on one vote that happened in early September of 2006. Congress moved to pass a 5-page resolution commemorating the 5th anniversary of September 11th. It reads like this. Whereas on the morning of September 11th, 2001, while Americans were attending to their daily routines, terrorists hijacked 4 civilian aircraft, crashing 2 of them into the towers of the World Trade Center in New York City and a 3rd into the Pentagon outside Washington, D.C., and goes on to laud heroic actions and commemorate the loss of those killed. But here's where things get sticky. The resolution also included wording praising things like the Patriot Act and border security measures that were championed by President George W. Bush and vehemently opposed by some Democrats. In all, 22 Democrats voted against this resolution, Baldwin saying that it was disgracefully politicizing the issue. Other Democrats even speculated at the time that the wording was only included to trap them in a vote that could be used against them.
Is a slap in the face to every one of their families and anyone who has ever served in the United States military.
Should that vote alone stand as her record on 9/11 victims? Baldwin has voted 9 times for resolutions commemorating 9/11. She also voted to award congressional gold medals to the victims of the terrorist attacks.
It's a very dangerous path Tammy's leading us on.
What would you do if these were your children? How would you feel?
Although they don't explain it here, this last citation has to do with Baldwin's vote against a defense appropriation bill. While she did vote against it, her reason was she objected to continuing to fund the war in Afghanistan. This bill never passed the U.S. Senate. I'm Jessica Arp with this Campaign 2012 reality check.
Up next, Susan's back in the interview chair, this time with Tammy Baldwin.
You have a very liberal voting record. Your opponent says you're one of the most liberal people in Congress. Is that who you are? Sit in on that conversation when we return, and then a reality check on Baldwin's newest TV ad. Also, keep sharing your thoughts with us using the Twitter hashtag MyWI. Swing State, Wisconsin. We'll be right back.
If Barack Obama is re-elected, what will the next 4 years be like? 1, the debt will grow from $16 trillion to $20 trillion. 2, 20 million Americans could lose their employer-based health care. 3, taxes on the middle class will go up by $4,000. 4, energy prices will continue to go up. And 5, $716 billion in Medicare cuts that hurt current seniors. 5 reasons we can't afford 4 more years of Barack Obama.
I'm Mitt Romney, and I approve this message.
Washington could sure learn a lot from Wisconsin.
Especially how to tighten their belts and balance the budget.
I believe that Washington is moving in the wrong direction.
Have you seen Tammy Baldwin's voting record?
The health care bill that Tammy Baldwin voted for will cost us double what they promised.
Our national debt is at $16 trillion.
I have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. The debt they'll have, we can't even understand it now.
Americans for Prosperity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Just put a little bit of yourself in everything you do.
Add your own ingredients to Hamburger Helper for a fresh take on a quick, delicious meal. It's one box with hundreds of possibilities.
With over 50 delicious choices of Green Giant vegetables, it's easy to eat like a giant and feel like a green giant.
Ho, ho, ho. Green Giant.
Still to come on Swing State, Wisconsin, the 2012 presidential ticket has a historic lack of veterans. Is military service less important to the electorate? Wisconsin vets weigh in. And maybe you haven't heard their names, but third-party candidates can change the game. How they're shaking up the race. Stay with us.
We all like school teachers. That's a wonderful thing. But hiring school teachers is not going to raise the growth of the U.S. economy.
Mitt Romney on education.
All the talk about we need smaller classroom size, look, that's promoted by the teachers' unions to hire more teachers.
President Obama has a different view. He believes smaller class sizes and great teachers are a key to a stronger economy and a stronger middle class.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
We had a good group of people, good group of employees out there.
This was a booming place, and Mitt Romney and Bain Capital turned it into a junkyard.
I was suddenly 60 years old. I had no health care.
Mainly I was thinking about is my family. How am I going to take care of my family?
He promised us the same things he's promised in the United States. He'll give you the same thing he gave us. Nothing.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I'm Tammy Baldwin, and I approve this message.
Tommy Thompson's ad is a disgrace. The truth. Time and again, Tammy Baldwin has supported honoring victims of 9/11. And Tommy Thompson? He got a government contract to provide health care to 9/11 first responders. But Tommy took advantage, leaving them without the care they were promised. Tommy Thompson personally made over $3 million off the deal. Tommy Thompson should be ashamed.
You're watching Swing State, Wisconsin, a Campaign 2012 special. Here once again from the state capitol in Madison is Susan Simon.
In the last segment, we spoke with Republican U.S. Senate candidate Tommy Thompson. Now it's his Democratic opponent, Tammy Baldwin's turn. Here's our conversation.
Say hi real quick. Tammy Baldwin, running for U.S. Senate. How you doing?
It's not every day that a trip for breakfast puts you on the campaign trail. But that's what happened to diners in Janesville when Tammy Baldwin showed up at the Park City restaurant with the man she's hoping to replace, outgoing Senator Herb Kohl. Is this the kind of thing you like to do on the campaign trail?
Oh, this is wonderful. Seeing a lot of old friends, meeting a lot of new people, and just sort of hearing what's on their mind, the sort of raw ideas that they have as they watch this election come to a close. You know, there's a lot of people who are struggling here, sharing a little bit about that and what they're looking for in terms of a path forward.
The six-term Congresswoman from the 2nd District is neck and neck in an election that many expected her to lose. You have been easily reelected every time you've run, and this seat is pretty firmly in Democratic hands. So why are you running for the Senate? Right
now we're talking about who will be one of 2 United States senators on behalf of the entire state of Wisconsin. So the opportunity, you know, as we're at this crossroads, to be able to start working on, you know, a manufacturing agenda for this state and for this country. We know that these key decisions that we're talking about are going to be undertaken pretty imminently. So this is a moment.
A moment Tammy envisioned 26 years ago when she was first elected to the Dane County Board of Supervisors and then the State Assembly. When Republican Congressman Scott Klug retired, Tammy won the Democratic primary and later the general election. She is the first woman elected to Congress from the state of Wisconsin. You have a very liberal voting record. Your opponent says you're one of the most liberal people in Congress. Is that who you are?
No, I would describe myself as a proud progressive. And that's, the word progressive is one that people really relate to in the state of Wisconsin since Bob LaFollette Sr., a Republican, left his party to found the Progressive Party.
You know what I'm intrigued by is that when someone says, I have a very conservative voting record, that is seen as something to admire. But when you say, I have a very liberal voting record, that feels like something that you have to defend. Why is that?
Well, I think the words have been turned on their heads. I did vote to go to war in Afghanistan after the 9/11 attacks, but I voted no on all of the rest of those unfunded measures because I thought they were fiscally irresponsible. So I don't know how people think these labels and names mean anything anymore if you're talking about prudent fiscal stewardship of this country.
If you get elected, you will be the first openly gay elected member of the U.S. Senate in American history. What is the significance of that?
Just the message it sends when we have legislative bodies that look like the cross-section of America in all of its diversity. And that a young person who maybe feels like well, there's not really an option for them to pursue their aspirations can say, Tammy Baldwin's elected to the U.S. Senate.
Tammy grew up in Madison, raised by her mother and maternal grandparents. She was valedictorian of her high school class at Madison West.
You know, my mother was just a teenager when I was born and going through a divorce and moved back in with her parents, my grandparents. And they, you know, perhaps they were looking forward to their golden years and then they got this little kid who stuck around with them for a while.
What do you think she'd say if she were here today?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have to just say that she was born in 1906, before women had the right to vote. She lived to 94 years old and got to see me elected to the United States Congress. And I think of all the changes she's seen, she'd be very excited about what's happening right now.
In the event that you don't win on Election Day, what will the next chapter hold for Tammy Baldwin?
You know, I have to say, I think about the things that I do in public service that I find the most rewarding. And sometimes it's the opportunity to teach. You see a young person in the room who lights up and you understand, you can tell they've been inspired or they've figured out their own power in making change in this world. And that is one of the most treasured things I have about what I do now, and I think I'd try to figure out ways to keep on doing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Next, we're going to do this. Things are looking good, I think, too.
I know.
So
we all
keep it
pull
moving.
together, work
Yep.
hard for the next 17 days.
Great job, Ms. Bailey.
Excellent. Appreciate it.
And we'd like to take this opportunity to thank both of the candidates for their time.
Just a couple of days ago, Baldwin's campaign launched a new ad in direct response to one by Thompson, where he claimed she failed to honor 9/11 victims. But not all of the claims are entirely true. Here's Jessica Arp with a reality check.
After accusing her opponent of politicizing 9/11 with his latest ad, Tammy Baldwin is firing back with her own charges over the national tragedy.
Tommy Thompson's ad is a disgrace. The truth. Time and again, Tammy Baldwin has supported honoring victims of 9/11.
This is true. Baldwin did vote 9 times to honor the victims of 9/11 with commemorating resolutions and once to authorize a 9/11 memorial. She did, as Thompson pointed out, vote against the commemorating resolution in 2006, but it included provisions unique to that resolution that lauded the Patriot Act and other controversial measures that Baldwin opposed.
And Tommy Thompson? He got a government contract to provide health care to 9/11 first responders.
This is also true. Thompson was named president of Logistics Health of La Crosse in 2005. In 2008, Logistics got an $11 million contract from the Department of Health and Human Services to provide care and monitor the health of 9/11 first responders. It was an agency he'd left only 3.5 years earlier, and some at the time questioned the move.
But Tommy took advantage, leaving them without the care they were promised. Tommy Thompson personally made over $3 million off the deal.
This is misleading. Logistics got the contract in June of 2008, and by September they were under fire. Responders said they weren't getting care because a switchover between companies hadn't been processed. Logistics said it wasn't all their fault, and some other groups agreed, saying there wasn't sufficient time to transfer over information of more than 4,000 people. Did he really make $3 million off of the contract? No. Documents show he made $3 million off of the sale of the company last year. He did make some money while the contract was still going. Records show he made $254,000 in salary in 2011. I'm Jessica Arp with this Campaign 2012 Reality Check.
Coming up next, we'll return our focus to the presidential race.
For the first time since World War II, no candidate on a major party ticket has any military experience. So what do veterans think? The answer might not be what you'd expect.
And third-party candidates have virtually no shot at winning, but they could still change who gets elected. It's happened before and could very well likely happen again this year.
We have to work on a collaborative basis. Look, the reason I'm in this race is there are people that are really hurting today in this country. And we face this deficit could crush the future generations. And Republicans and Democrats both love America, but we need to have leadership in Washington that will actually bring people together and get the job done, and could not care less if it's a Republican or a Democrat. I've done it before, I'll do it again.
I'm Mitt Romney, and I approve this message.
Washington could sure learn a lot from Wisconsin.
Especially how to tighten their belts and balance the budget.
I believe that Washington is moving in the wrong direction.
Have you seen Tammy Baldwin's voting record?
The health care bill that Tammy Baldwin voted for will cost us double what they promised.
Our national debt is at $16 trillion.
I have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. The debt they'll have, we can't even understand it now.
Americans for Prosperity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
These are the hands that built America. They aren't Republican hands or Democrat hands. They're American hands. They don't want a handout, didn't get a bailout, just worked harder and earned their way. These hands built America, and they're ready to build it again. Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan believe these hands hold our solutions. On Election Day, let's vote for leaders who believe in American solutions, not more Washington failures.
American Future Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Tammy Baldwin is too extreme. So extreme, Baldwin proposed trillions in taxes Nancy Pelosi opposed.
You're damn right.
So extreme, Baldwin voted for higher taxes over 150 times. And so extreme, Baldwin voted against the bipartisan tax cut compromise.
No way! Not here! Not now!
Tammy Baldwin, too extreme for Wisconsin.
You're damn right!
The National Republican Senatorial Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
There's just no quit in America, and you're seeing that right now. Over 5 million new jobs. Exports up 41%. Home values rising. Our auto industry back. And our heroes are coming home. We're not there yet, but we've made real progress. And the last thing we should do is turn back now. Here's my plan for the next 4 years. Making education and training a national priority. Building on our manufacturing boom. Boosting American-made energy. Reducing the deficits responsibly by cutting where we can and asking the wealthy to pay a little more. And ending the war in Afghanistan so we can do some nation building here at home. That's the right path. So read my plan, compare it to Governor Romney's, and decide which is better for you. It's an honor to be your president, and I'm asking for your vote. So together, we can keep moving America forward. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
You're watching Swing State, Wisconsin, a Campaign 2012 special.
After more than a decade of war, November's presidential tickets won't reflect it.
For the first time in 80 years, neither the Democrat nor Republican ticket includes a veteran.
Mark Lovicott now, and if it's just a sign of changing times or a problem.
As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy,
it was an era.
Well, I've been in World War II. I got in from college.
That 89-year-old Bud Buckheim knows all too well. Franklin Roosevelt had just been elected president. It was the last time our country saw its major presidential and VP candidates with no ranked military service. A few years later, World War II began, and Bud served as a pilot in the Navy.
Now I'm paralegal, just kind of hang out and try not to get people in too much trouble.
It was a time well before Ed Deco was even thought about. The 28-year-old is employed by the military and, like Bud, spent time in a war zone.
I deployed from 2009 to 2010 to Iraq and did.
You were in Iraq?
I was in Iraq. I was just outside of Baghdad at the airport.
Deco worked with Iraqi prison guards in Operation Iraqi Freedom.
I could have stayed in.
Well, we'll take you back. Come over and join the guard.
Yeah.
Their broad military background and their generational difference is why we got them together for a conversation. For Deco's generation, even his parents' generation, there has always been a choice on the ballot for a president or VP with ranked military service.
I've lived a long time, and I've lived through I don't know how many wars, and I'm very much anti-war.
And while both Deco and Buckheim share the same stance on war,
I'm with you. I'm not for war at all.
when it comes to military service and our elected leaders, their opinions clash.
It does bother me. I mean, anytime that you're going to be in charge of that many people, like he's got the entire military, or whoever wins the election, is going to have the entire military service around. If it's not somebody that's at least done some time in it, how are they ever going to know what they're about to send all these people into?
That doesn't really make any difference to me, primarily. It does make a difference if they talk war a lot and haven't had any. Vice President Cheney was a war talker, I thought, and didn't have any back.
Buckheim argues the president has appointees who can better handle military issues, but Deco says a president needs to understand firsthand the tolls of war and the pain. He says, however, that it's an issue and not a deal breaker.
That one bothers me a little bit, but I mean, it's not going to swing my vote either way. At the end of the day, my vote's going to go to whoever's going to help me the most.
And for Buckheim, that man is President Barack Obama. Deco, again, shares a different opinion.
I'll tell you who I vote for. I vote for him every year, but it's you guys might giggle a little bit.
He says there's only one person in this country he trusts and knows he would get the support from. That man?
I vote for my dad. Every year. I write him in.
Do you really?
I really do. The last two elections that I've been able to vote in. Well, my dad's got my best interests in mind. He's not going to send me to a war.
And ironically, Dad doesn't have any military experience, but Deco says, again, it's not a deal breaker.
It's a write-in, and I know it's not really making a huge effect, but I'm still putting in my honest vote.
And it's a vote during an election that both men will agree is as important as ever. For Campaign 2012, I'm Mark Lovicott.
Susan, I know your dad's a vet. Maybe this is the new trend, or maybe vets will run again in the future. Well, if you didn't know there are more than 2 people running for president, who could blame you? Third-party candidates, they generate almost no attention.
When you go to vote in Wisconsin on November 6th, you'll have 7 choices. Here's Danica Lewis with more on how the bottom of the ticket can absolutely change who comes out on top.
With that, let me introduce these 4 independent candidates.
The 2 major parties would absolutely be much happier if they just could duke it out between each other and not have to worry about these pesky third parties.
I'm Virgil Goode. If you want a choice between Tweedledum and Tweedledee, vote for either Obama or Romney.
Been looking for other alternatives.
After voting Democrat in the last go-round,
I was really disappointed in a lot of his broken promises.
Calissa Davis found herself a party of a different color, headquartered in Madison.
I think that voting for either Romney or Obama is more of a waste of a vote than voting for Jill Stein.
We have a political system that is serving an economic elite, but the rest of us are being thrown under the bus.
A physician-turned Green Party candidate, Jill Stein, made national headlines when she and her running mate were arrested outside of the second presidential debate for sitting down in the street when they weren't allowed to stand up on stage.
This speaks volumes about what we get, what kind of a society we get that censors political dialogue, that silences political opposition.
But Stein got her chance to take the podium in her hometown of Chicago Tuesday night.
Party actually represents real values.
Along with former Salt Lake City Mayor Rocky Anderson with the Justice Party.
That's real democracy, and that's giving the voters real choice.
Past Virginia Congressman and Constitution Party candidate Virgil Goode.
In my view, it's a hindrance to true democracy.
And former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson for the Libertarian Party.
I've been given the opportunity here to make the case that's not being made by either of the 2 major candidates.
A 4-way face-off, unlikely that anyone on stage Page will sit in the Oval Office.
They rarely win elections because our winner-take-all kind of system, especially with the Electoral College for the presidency.
UW-Madison political expert David Cannon predicts the 16 candidates campaigning on independent tickets nationwide will only pick up 1 or 2% of the vote.
It's mostly about getting your issue on the table. And then if you can get, a couple 100,000 votes in the process, then all the better.
That doesn't mean these voices go unheard.
The major party candidates are very aware of the potential danger the third parties pose to their electoral chances. Absolutely.
We caught up with Virgil Good meeting and greeting in Beloit, a break from fighting voter fraud allegations in his home state. He says it's Governor Romney's party at work.
Republicans spent between $500,000 and $1 million, I would estimate, to keep me off the ballot.
Good will be on that Virginia ballot, as well as the one in Wisconsin.
There are some estimates that he could draw as much as 2, 3, 4% of the vote away from Mitt Romney in Virginia, and that's quite possibly the margin of victory in Virginia.
According to Cannon, the votes Green Partier Ralph Nader pulled from Florida in 2000 were enough to put Al Gore behind in that swing state. Ross Perot ran on the reform ticket in 92 and 96, and almost 20% of the country picked him on the ballot.
The race is a close one in Wisconsin, but with 5 different third-party candidates on the ballot this time around, Cannon says it will split the difference, not impacting totals for Romney or Obama.
It probably won't be the margin of difference in Wisconsin.
But for those who feel democracy should be more than a two-party choice.
The American people are not just ready for this, they're clamoring for it.
It's a cause well worth the campaign.
I would certainly rather vote for something I really believe in and not get it than vote for something I didn't really want in the first place.
For Campaign 2012, I'm Danica Lewis.
Thanks for watching Swing State Wisconsin. You can still join our Twitter conversation about the election using the hashtag MyWI.
And be sure to join the national conversation on Tuesday, November 6th. Go out and vote. I'm Susan Simon.
And I'm Eric Franke. Good night.
You're up at dawn, home at dusk. Folks count on you. You count on Ford F-Series. And that's why you're one of Wisconsin's go-to guys.
And that's why Ford F-Series is Wisconsin's go-to truck.
Connect with F-Series, Wisconsin's #1 truck, and get F-150 with 0 for 60 or up to $6,500 in total savings.
Hey, Barb, today's the day.
It is?
Yep, time to check the box.
Oh, our health insurance.
Yep.
And we're keeping Physicians Plus, right? Because it's the best for our whole family, like we talked about.
Yep. Great local docs, next-day appointments, records online, mobile apps, ways to help us stay healthy and keep our premiums low.
Wow, you've got it down.
Yep. Isn't it great?
Yep.
Decision-making time is here. If you have Physicians Plus, keep it. If you don't, check the box and join.
Get big savings at Menards.
With an 11% rebate on everything in the store.
You can't afford to miss this sale.
Save 11% on lumber.
Save 11% on plumbing.
Save 11% on electrical.
Get an 11% rebate on floors.
And so much more.
The more you buy,
the more you save.
Get ready for winter and store your mowers, wheelbarrows, and more in a new Aero storage building. Right now, all 11% off after rebate.
Save big money at Menards.
The final days of the model year-end clearance. Get closeout Don Miller deals during Ram Power Days featuring new Rams like Hemi Express 4x4s from only $24,999. Get Ram Tradesman Quad 4x4s from $26,995. And during the Jeep Celebration event, get Don Miller Jeep Wranglers from $23,222. 2012 model year closeouts from Don Miller Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram. Odana et Tokay.
Working the ranch leaves my skin dry and worn.
Rehydrate your skin with Gold Bond Ultimate Healing Lotion. 7 intensive moisturizers, healing aloe, relieves dry, rough skin.
Because my skin needs a little extra healing.
Gold Bond Ultimate.
This stuff really works.
When friends and family are in need, Ho-Chunk is there to lend a hand. See how we're working together to do great things by going to channel3000.com.
Tammy Baldwin is too extreme. So extreme, Baldwin proposed trillions in taxes Nancy Pelosi opposed.
You're damn right.
So extreme, Baldwin voted for higher taxes over 150 times. And so extreme, Baldwin voted against the bipartisan tax cut compromise.
No way! Not here! Not now!
Tammy Baldwin, too extreme for Wisconsin.
You're damn right.
The National Republican Senatorial Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
We're tracking gas pump performance Monday on News 3 at 10.
Dave's all new with Vegas star Dennis Quaid, plus Kristen Ritter tonight